What's up, everybody? My name's Sean. I'm from the Language of Bromance podcast. And I'm here today to kind of give you some advice on how to podcast. I've been doing this for about a year and a half now. Richard and I do the podcast, The Language of Bromance. And this will be the first video that I'm going to be putting out. Since I've been doing this for about a year and a half, I thought I could share some of the things that I've gone through, some of the advice I have. The podcasting community is a really great community in helping others get what they like out of podcasting. If you go to the Reddit subthread for podcasting, there's always a lot of people out there willing to help. And right now it's kind of a situation of like, why not go out and try to do this thing? Because there's no real regulations. There's nothing really on it right now. Anybody can do it, and it's relatively free. So I'm going to go through like a lot of the options of what I did. Some of the things that didn't help me out when I first started, some of the things that helped me out later on, and just try to give you as much advice as I can and kind of an indie perspective in the podcasting realm. Give you a little backstory on what Richard and I did. So about a year and a half ago, we decided to start our podcast, The Language of Bromance, and had no relatively idea how to podcast. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and we had talked about doing it numerous times, but it was a kind of a situation where we're just like, nobody would listen to us. There's not really a reason for us to do this because we're nobodies. We're just, two guys who like to joke around, and we never recorded our conversations before. We talk on the phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time, and there's a lot of fun conversations that were there that just nobody will ever get to hear because they're gone. But we decided at some point to be like, well, screw it, let's just do this. We'll do a podcast and we'll see what happens. And so far we've, every Sunday when we've released one every Sunday since we started. So back in June of 2014, we've released every single Sunday since. And we've grown to have quite a few listeners from there, and it's been a fun ride, And the big question is, if you're coming here, if you're in the same boat I was, and you're coming to this, like, well, what should I know? What should I do to podcast? You're already on the right track. You're thinking this is something you want to do, so go ahead and do it. What I'm going to go through, in a couple of these videos, and we'll see if people have different questions, I can try to help answer those as I go. But for the most part, I'm just going to kind of give the high level of what it took, and this one is just really kind of the intro of if you're on the fence of saying should I or shouldn't I say you should. A lot of people will come into this thing called podcasting, and the big question they always have is like, well, who's going to listen to me? Who's not going to listen to me? I shouldn't do it because I'm not going to get any listeners. But it's really not about that. It's, if you're coming into podcasting thinking that you're going to make a ton of money right off the bat, that's just not going to happen. It's very, very rare for a lot of people to come in and to make money right away. There are people who do it. It's not uncommon. A lot of times you'll see it's more of niche shows. So yeah, Serial put podcasting in the mainstream, but the main thing they had out of that is, they're an NPR type show. They already had an audience, and that's what you'll see with a lot of shows that are big, and you see on like Noteworthy and things like that on iTunes is, they already have an audience. So the main thing I've heard a lot of times too is like, well, I don't have an audience yet. Well, you probably don't have a lot of experience with any kind of radio or any kind of shows like this. So, live in your obscurity. Find a topic you like. I mean, if you go back and listen to some of Richard and I's very first episodes, they're a little rough. I mean, we were very uncomfortable in front of the mic.
I'm Richard.
And I'm Sean.
And we are speaking the language of bromance.
That sounds cute. Like, we didn't really know what we want to do. Even in this is only the first few times I've done a YouTube video, but I'm getting into the point where I feel a little bit more confident doing this. I've done a few. So it's really just taking that first step. And the first step you're already taking right now by coming in and watching this video, trying to figure out if you should podcast. And I say yes, you should. At worst, you've tried it out and you figured out you didn't like it, or maybe you figured out you did like it. And maybe others do. Maybe others like what you're doing, and if they don't, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. So the main things that with this is kind of what I'm going for is, if you're already in the boat of saying, yes, this is something I want to do, go ahead and do it. Like, what topic should I do? Well, if you like knitting, do a knitting podcast. If you like card games, do a card game podcast. If you're like Richard and I, we just kind of like to do a comedy type podcast where we just make each other laugh. Each week we get together and we either pick a story or we do drafts every couple episodes, which are a lot of fun because we go in, we pick a topic, and we draft. It's kind of like a top 10, except instead of each time hitting the same thing each time. So my number 10's this, my number 10's that too. It's, you only get one pick, and it kind of allows for us to talk about different things. But that's something we discovered we like doing, and we love doing those, and so does the people that listen. So again, just find some kind of topic that you like. If they'll say if it's a very niche thing, you'll have a better opportunity to get noticed because there's probably more people that want to see that thing that you're looking for. So for example, if you do a movie review podcast or a pop culture type podcast, there's a lot of those out there, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do those. Still, go ahead and do those, because if it's something you enjoy doing, you should go out and do it. I said earlier, podcasting is relatively free. You can do it on your iPhone, or any phone really. You can do it on your computer. If you want to get down and dirty with the very basics of it, it doesn't cost that much money. I'm going to go into a few things in a few episodes later. Kind of the topics I'm thinking of covering are, kind of staying in your lane. What are the things that you should really focus on, and what you shouldn't? And some of the other services that I've used that have helped allow me to focus on creating the content instead of trying to worry about, how to create a website, how to get my feed into iTunes and things like that. So, I'd love to hear if you guys have anything specific you'd like to hear me talk about. I'm going to try to put these out weekly. I'll probably have a few in the can when I go to release these. So if I don't get to any of yours in the next video or the video after, I'll try to get to those as soon as possible. But the main thing I want to get out of this is, if you've already come to this YouTube page and you're saying, should I podcast? I say yes. There is absolutely no reason you shouldn't try it. And hopefully this will give you that little nudge to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this because some Joe Schmo can do it. Why can't I? So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and email me at languageofbromance@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at languageofbro. Our website is languageofbromance.com. We're on Facebook. You can check out our podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, the Pocket Cast, and we're also on the Pod Bros Network. So I don't have a good ending for any of these yet, but just go out and podcast and just have a good time.